right, folks, we ready to rock and roll? Here we go. It's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. It's August 19th. Hopefully you guys have had a good last few weeks. Real quick, I'll just address a few items from the group. One, as I mentioned maybe last week, appreciate your guys' fluidity and flexibility as it relates to, I just needed a Tuesday and I didn't have it. And so I sent a note out at 8 a.m. to say, give you the gift of time 3 weeks ago. And hopefully I was modeling behavior that you guys should be implementing too when you feel like you just don't have it and you got to work on other things. And that's totally cool too. Second piece of it is last week we also had, or 2 weeks ago, we had a little bit of an internet snafu. And I got a lot of texts afterwards. It was like, wait, you were going to talk about my money, my business, and my mindset. Are you going to run that back? The answer is yes. I just didn't record it because I'm always looking for content. So I'll repurpose it here in the next few weeks. And I have it coming up post Labor Day in the month of September. But I think there were some good things to be thinking about as we head into Q3, Q4, and into 2026 strategic planning for you and your businesses. So apologize for a little bit of the internet snafu 2 weeks ago. And then last week we didn't have a team meeting because there was about 30 of us down in San Antonio, Texas for Mega Camp. So here we go. We're back. Today, I'm going to give you a little bit of a market update and some commentary that we heard from last week down in Mega Camp. Give you a little bit of an overlay that I usually do post market update in terms of what we heard at Mega Camp, also overlaying my own personal opinions and commentary as it relates to what's going on in the market. And I would tell you, I went into the conversation around the market update having some feelings, and I would say I came out of the conversation having my feelings validated, and I'll explain what that means here in a little bit around giving you the details to that presentation. So that's what we got on deck for today. Sound good? Here we go. All right, so mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. Look, one of the other things that happened about 7 to 10 days ago is we had a historic 1,000-year flooding in southeastern Wisconsin that I know many of you not only had your clients impacted, but your personal residences, investment properties, whether it was you live along the Milwaukee River like Karen Spinty, who had the river all the way into her home, or Kathleen Wooten, who was sledging out stuff in her basement and everywhere in between. I know a lot of deals were in flux over the last 10 days. And I want to share with you something as it relates to our response outside of the note that I sent on Monday, along with some resources and things to be thinking about as it relates to transactions. Is some of you might know this and some of you might not, but we have a very core group of people that contribute to this thing, this little thing called the KW Local Cares. And it is a line item on our balance sheet that holds a decent amount of money for events like this that allows us to make strategic investments in people that really need it the most. And last week, Courtney on the 12th at 2:31 p.m. sent out a survey request. And the purpose behind the survey request is to us to assess who is in really need of some assistance that we can make an impact for and to. And I'm not talking about your clients. I'm talking about you personally. Like if you are really in a tough spot, and let's say your water heater went out, your furnace went out because of flooding. I've heard a lot of stories of insurance denying claims for a variety of reasons. If you're in a tough spot, we want to know so that we can make an impact for you and to you. And we would really appreciate if you would fill out the survey because we want to make an impact for you and we have the ability to do so. And so this morning after team meeting, we will resend out the survey. And again, what we're looking for is really those that are in a really tough spot and we want to be able to help. And we have the ability to help and we want to know how we can help so that we can use dollars, funds, and resources in the most strategic and direct way versus throwing things up against the wall and seeing or hoping things that might make an impact. We want to know exactly what you might need, exactly the situation you're in, and how we can exactly
that will
maximize those.
Top step.
So with that, if you wouldn't mind filling out that survey, we would.
Hot water heaters that would take out the.
All right, with that, we have a handful of cappers to celebrate who capped in the month of July. And guys, just to be clear, we had such a large group. I actually requested to the team that we were going to break this up over the next 2 weeks because there was a large group and we want to make sure that everyone is recognized appropriately. So this week and next week, we will do July cappers. So if you capped in the month of July and we don't hit you this week, know that you're coming next week. So with that, I got to give a shout out to the first person. They called me immediately on Sunday afternoon and, or maybe it was Monday. They called me Monday and they said, hey, it was a great note. Serve Pro, Service Masters, Sunbelt Restoration, Myers Carpet Cleaning, this, that, and the other. It was all great. And I got a company out of West Bend, a small little mom and pop. And people should know that small businesses right now are ready and able and willing to help when the large ones aren't always, might not have availability just because of their size and scale. And some of the smaller shops do have availability to help our folks. And I was able to take some of the recommendations she provided us to some of our people as well. Callie Adler, thank you for always being a contributing member to our community. Next up, out in Prestige, this woman is killing it, and she's been killing it during a time in which that the market has receded from a transactional unit standpoint. Gotta give a shout out to Becky Bednarik for capping in the month of July. Next one up, one of the OGs out here in Lake Country who is with us from day one on Pauling Road. Always been a contributing member to the community, was a PC coach for a long time, and always brings her grandkids in and around the Lake Country space. Connie Cummings, congrats for capping in the month of July. Next up, fun little fact. This person was my high school running back that I blocked for when I was a tight end in high school. Benny the Jet Davis has been in and around my life since middle school, grade school, and a couple years ago made his transition into the real estate space, and I'm happy for him and the success that he's having for his family. Benny the Jet Davis, congrats for capping on the month of July. Next up, I understand the weight and the burden that this person operates within the space. And what do I mean by that? She operates in a space where her mother has had a lot of success and she's now trying to create her name and carve out her path in this business. And this business is incestuous to a point where there's a lot of multi-generational family members who come into it. And that creates a separate kind of pressure. And she's dealing with that pressure with absolute grace. She's doing an incredible job of building her business at a young age. Bridget Gallagher, congrats on capping in the month of July. Next up, another one of the OGs who out in the Lake Country space, the very first time I met this agent was at my parents' dining room table at their house in Heartland. We had yet to really have an office, and she heard we were doing something, and she drove over and met with Karen Trimble, my mom, and myself at the dining room table at my mom's house. And she said, I'm in. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm in. And I got to give a shout out to Natasha Jambrick for capping in the month of July. All right, two more. Next up, this individual is building a sense of community within where she lives, works, and plays. She is doing things around building a moat around her community and making an impact where she can make an impact. Congrats to Megan Ludwig for capping in the month of July. And then lastly, in the month of July, for someone who's capped, this is an OG, someone who's been around the business a long time, has seen almost every single development in the downtown market happen. And we haven't had a lot of development in the downtown market since 2008. But she has a wealth of depth and breadth of knowledge of the downtown market. Congrats to Nancy Meeks for capping in the month of July. All right, guys, I'm going to transition over to training, education, and events with a few things to point out. As I've shared with you and I've challenged you as it relates to the model in which your business needs to operate from, these are the things you need to be thinking about as it relates to what you are strategically setting yourself up for Q4 2025 into Q1 2026. What is your brand's promise? How are you integrating data into how you make decisions within your business? How are you utilizing AI to accelerate trends, insights, and strategies? And what marketing mediums around how you communicate what your brand promise is and lives? And I've challenged the group as it relates to the 90-10, 90-10 model in terms of how do you create your value creation moving forward in a world when there's lots of questions around value creation. Right? And where is trust built and developed, and how do you continue to cultivate that? So August training calendar, I will tell you, we are working on September's as we speak. I will foreshadow for you in the month of September. I am hosting a road show where I will be going to every single location in the month of September, and I will be hosting the AI Playbook, which is a educational course that we have developed around how do you utilize AI within your business? How do you make sense of prompts? What is it that you should be doing? So a little bit of a foreshadow there, but just wanted a handful of things to call out here in the month of August still left. One thing to note, our offices will be closing on Thursday beginning at 2 p.m. because our team is looking forward to hosting you at the family picnic. For those that have signed up, as of this morning, we are 500 people, which is phenomenal. And we look forward to hosting you at the family picnic on Thursday. Immediately after team meeting this morning at the innovation office, and yes, it will be Zoomed and recorded, Magnolia Tax Services will be giving their lunch and learn all around tips, tricks, and strategies, and what you should be paying attention to make sure that you're not overpaying Uncle Sam. Ignite has been rolling. We've had 40 plus people in the class every single week. Tomorrow, Jay Schmidt will be giving a qualifying and close all around seller strategies in order to win the listings. Next week, Monday, Holly Speranza will be the art of competitive offers. Mackenzie will be negotiating next week, Wednesday. And then the 28th is Emily Fair will be igniting you into the future. And so I got to give a shout out to the 40 plus people that have been attending Ignite through the month of August in the New Berlin training room. Coming up on September 10th, Save the Day. We are changing this to be a bit more than a headshot day, to be a content day. Many people need content. Many people need lifestyle things. Pay attention. September 10th in downtown Milwaukee in the 3rd Ward. More details to come. And then lastly, this week, Thursday, we're calling it the family day. I'm calling it a family picnic. One of the beautiful things about the holiday party in December is how many of you bring your spouses and partners and get to feel, see, and touch how our community is cultivated and interacts with one another. And I wanted to do something this summer that brought your families into it more holistically in terms of kids, grandkids, and anyone else you want to bring. We'll have live music, carnival games, kid-friendly activities, food trucks, and more. And I was just told yesterday that they got a dunk tank and I need to be ready to be dunked. So feel free to show up in RSVP. I'll be sending out a note after team meeting for a last call. All right, with that, Linz, what do these guys need to know around plug and play and the 36 touch?
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. So since we're in the back half of the year, I wanted to take a fresh approach to the 36 touch. And, it's always kind of difficult to plan out that 36 touch. How are you engaging with your database every single month? So I wanted to kind of take a look at it in a little bit of a different light. So basically, 36 touch is engaging with your database, with your sphere. It's a marketing campaign that gives you year-round contact with your sphere of influence, or your SOI, as we call it. These touches ensure you are top of mind, and they establish you as the local real estate expert. And the campaign can be a mixture of emails, text messages, direct mail, phone calls, prospecting events, pop-bys, social media, really anytime you're engaging with your database. That is your 36 touch. So our marketing team has curated a bunch of grab and go materials that are ready to use, ready to download, so that you can really plug and play and create and craft your 36 touch. So some of those, and you've heard me talk about these before, we put together the MLS market update emails. So we take what the MLS sends every single month and we create that more into a social media post. We create an email campaign in Command and kind of beef that up a little bit so that you can send that out as a monthly touch to your database. We have our 12 direct campaign. We just pushed out apple orchards and local fall festivals for the season. So those you can send out as a mailer, postcard, or an email, or a social media post if you want to quickly, post that and engage with your followers. We also have our post and go folder that's on our linked on our agent hub. So there you can download reels, you can download the market snapshots that we have for each county, and these we update every single month. So it's current statistics for each county across the Metro Milwaukee area. We also have Dodge County in there. We have Fond du Lac, we have Madison, and we also have holiday posts, as well as the lore report. So if you want to take what Charlie talks about for that language of real estate report and put that into social media and post some of those stats, we have those available as well. All right, so how do you get started? So the first and first thing you want to think about is how you can automate some of this content. So automating your 36 touch is going to free you up to focus on your relationships while still showing up consistently online and in people's inboxes. So what I always suggest is to plan out your year for your 36 touch. And if you haven't done that already, now's a great time to start. Plan out the rest of your 2025 with some of these plug and play resources. So that QR code is going to link directly to that Google Drive folder that we have linked on our Agent Hub with all of those resources. So it ensures that you are following up then. You want to follow up with phone calls and text messages. You don't just want to post and then not engage with people on social media. So make sure you're doing that as well. And as you've heard us talking about AI, and that's not going to slow down anytime soon, here's a pro tip. Use AI to start crafting your 36 touch. Log in a ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever AI platform that you prefer to use, and have it create a content calendar and schedule for your 36 touch. You can even prompt it to include some of the resources that we already have, or maybe you have your own ideas, but use AI to help you with coming up with that 36 touch marketing plan. All right. Flipping it over to just some training updates here. So we don't have class on Thursday due to Family Day, but then we're wrapping it up with Beyond the Feed for the summer. So Bella and I are going to talk about putting everything that you learned together and how do you start implementing some of the things that you learned this summer with creating reels, some tips from Canva, social media content, utilizing AI. So join us on the 28th at 1 p.m. So again, just take note of that time change, 1 o'clock due to Ignite. All right, and then a couple other things I have. So Mega Camp resources are now available to download if you guys haven't seen that already. So we have these linked on the KW Milwaukee Agent Hub under Event Resources. So all of the one-page resources and different models and systems that people have talked about during Mega Camp are all loaded on here. And guys, there's a ton. So I broke it out into day 1 and day 2, but there's probably 30 different pages of resources and systems and models that you can find on here. So highly recommend going in here and looking through and seeing what's all in here. So you've got social media, kind of one-sheeters in there. You've got things about AI. They did release a new AI playbook. So now they have 2 separate AI playbooks available to comb through and learn about. The new one that they released is large language models. So how do you utilize ChatGPT, Gemini, all of the different large language models that are available to utilize. So great content that came out of Mega Camp last week. And then also kind of going into that new playbook. I know Charlie's got some training coming up, but I'm going to kind of dedicate the month of September to this AI playbook and talk about how do you implement a lot of what it's talking about. So the tech and marketing training is back in September. So we've got 3 weeks and I'm going to break it down, that one playbook, into 3 separate trainings and how to implement some of the things that are talked about in that playbook. So join me in September for that training.
Lynn's, love it. Guys, 2 things to be thinking about. 36 touch is a simplistic model that you need to be utilizing because it creates automation to create a conversation with your clients. Even if they don't read your newsletter, because the open rates on those is very small, the touch of them seeing your name in your inbox is just as impactful and effective. And a lot of times agents overthink it. It is a very easy automation tool that we need to be implementing as it relates to how do you cut through clutter and noise. More noise. You need to be thinking about how you're behaving as a media company. You know, what's interesting right now, if you pay attention, is a little sidebar tangent and how it relates to a 36 touch. You know, I've shared with you some commentary around a really incredible professor at Harvard Business School that I follow. His name is Arthur Brooks. Arthur wrote The Art of Happiness. And you know what Arthur does? He's on Instagram. He sends me an email every Monday because he has a newsletter. He posts videos, he posts content, and you know all of what he is trying to do? Sell more books. He's utilizing literally the exact same framework. Whether you're an author, whether you're a content creator, or you're a real estate agent, the key to it is how are you consistently communicating a message to your clients. Second piece of it, and I've been really challenging Lindsay and the team around the evolution of our AI adoption and resources that we have available. Stay tuned, a little bit of a foreshadow for you of something we'll be soon be rolling out, is how are you embracing the AI models and platforms in order for it to create value to you and your business. And you'll see a lot more of that content creation from us from a training and education standpoint as we head into September, October, and beyond. Sound good? All right. With that, a very appropriate conversation with Sheriff Reed this morning around sellers' duty to repair damage. Sheriff Reed, what do these guys need to know as it relates to some recent events?
Yes, I will get into that after I show this slide about Steph being out of town for the next couple of weeks. And please don't text her, but or call or email her. So instead, call Andrew or me if you have compliance questions, going beyond the compliance hotlines that you can also call. Okay, we'll get into what the seller has to do. We did get a lot of calls last week on especially agents having clients who had wet basements. We also had members of our leadership team have damage. We also had our agents having some severe damage as well. All of us know, and I'm sure it's a repetitive, about the 5% rule in our offer to purchase. But what you may not know, and what did come up in a lot of the calls that we got last week, is the details in those lines of property damage between acceptance and closing. We sort of forget the little fine print, as they call it, in these lines in the offer to purchase. Basically, it lines on getting an estimate of the amount of damage that is done to the property before closing and after acceptance. So in that period of time in this transaction, property is damaged in the amount not more than 5% of the purchase price. Seller shall promptly notify buyer in writing. This is key. And will be obligated to restore the property to material the same condition it was. The seller has the duty to repair and bring it back to the same condition if it is less than 5%. The seller shall provide the buyer with copies of all required permits, lien waivers for the lienable repairs no later than closing. That's a fine detail that a lot of sellers were not noticing, or their agents, listing agents were not noticing, but the seller also has that duty. Now, if the amount of damage is big, which means exceeds 5% of the purchase price, seller shall promptly notify buyer in writing of the damage, and this offer may be terminated at the option of the buyer. Now, the buyer can elect to stay in this offer despite the damage. Buyer shall be entitled to the insurance proceeds, if any, relating to the damage of the property, plus a credit toward the purchase price equal to the amount of the seller's deductible on any policy. That's the kind of fine print I'm talking about. And so the seller and the listing agent have to be aware of what these responsibilities are of the seller. Now, we've had situations that came in last week where the seller said, sure, I mean, being, say, under 5%, I'm going to fix it as I agreed to in the contract. And I will give you any permits or lien waivers that needed to be done. And we should be fine no later than closing, really resolved at the walkthrough. At that point in time, the seller, if they realize and get estimates. Estimates can usually be done by a third party as well, so that it's not biased to either the buyer or the seller. If the amount of damage exceeds 5% of the purchase price, again, seller shall promptly notify the buyer in writing of the damage, that it exceeds 5%, and at that point, the buyer can terminate the offer within the terms of this contract. Should buyer elect to carry out this offer despite the damage, buyer shall be entitled to the insurance proceeds, if any, and relating to the damage of the property, plus a credit toward the purchase price equal to the amount of the seller's deductible on such a policy, if any. We have heard that, as Charlie said, some insurance companies are not coming through. It's very touchy. Another caveat in this paragraph in the offer to purchase is not all the damage can be assessed right away. With the high humidity that we've had this week and last week, and seem to continue for a little bit, that means rapid mold growth. And rapid mold growth can happen. Say you've already estimated the damage and it wasn't very much, it was under 5%. The seller was ready to get the damage fixed, and then the start of the mold growth, where it really gets a much more expensive restoration. So it's something that keeps growing. It has to keep being analyzed. And then we had the complications, the next slide, we had the complications of a buyer saying, I don't care if it's under 5% damage. I don't want to close. I don't want to buy the property. It looks like a mess. The buyers were insisting that they come right over the day of the awareness of the flood. The sellers were still in a sort of a state of shock and didn't want to deal with the buyers at that point. The buyers really had no other right to go through at that point, but you understood what their position was. But there were several calls that we worked with where the buyer just said, I don't care, I'm out. I'm not buying this mess. But here the buyer is putting themselves in a situation where they may be defaulting on the contract. If they have no other contingencies that they cannot satisfy, they really don't have a way out of the contract. They make sure you are not a lawyer, but make sure your buyer looks at the part of the offer to purchase that starts out when buyer defaults. So the buyer is full aware of what his liabilities are if he does default on the property, which means he doesn't have a legitimate way of getting out of the contract. If no agreement can be resolved between buyer and seller, buyer should contact legal representation. There's only so far we can go or help them.
You mind helping me with another voice?
Sure.
Do you have Venmo?
You're good, Sheriff Reed.
Good. Okay. So basically, that was another kick in the pants that we were getting, where the buyers were wanting to back out. But again, we know our limits. We're not lawyers. And I just want to sign off by saying, those who have been affected by the flooding, we wish you a thorough restoration and a return to normal as soon as possible. It's been tough, I know.
Sheriff Reed, thank you guys. And as you're navigating what's going on, and I know that there was some more rain last night and I saw pictures of more flooding in streets. If you have questions related to transactional things, know that we're here to help you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we are sending out a survey for those that might have been impacted personally. And we want to make sure that we can make an impact for you. And please make sure that you fill that out. And any legal or contract questions, make sure to reach out to Joan, Kimmy, or Andrew over the next few days while Steph is out as well. Cool?
Great.
All right, here we go. I'm going to give you the market update, and I'm going to share with you some of which is my opinions, some of which is what I heard from Gary, Jason, Jay, or Ruben, the economist who provides a lot of the insights and data. And here's what I would tell you. I went into the conversation feeling a certain thing. And what a lot of people ask me is, what's going on in the market? What's going on in the market? And I said, well, the market is interesting because prices keep appreciating, yet the market is operating like a sloth. Just slow and steady, slow and steady. And they're like, well, why do you think that is? And then I'd go into this whole nerdy conversation around data, and then I would lose them. And I was like, man, I really got to get better at figuring this out. Last week, I kind of figured out why. And I validated what I was feeling, and I'm going to share with you some insights. And a lot of the insights is what I would tell you is what you need to be thinking about as you head into 2026. And I'll tell you why. So here's the market update in terms of my commentary. One of the things that I will do, one, we will update all of these slides with all the yellow you see is either what I heard or my opinions. We will share that with you as a way for you guys to be the economist of choice within your communities when people ask you what's going on within the market, and hopefully it adds to the conversation. So before we begin, I'm just going to real quick, I'm going to move some of this piece. So before we start, when you fall, get up and run. When you stumble, gather yourself and run. When you are down, look up and run. When you are scared, find a way and run. When you are happy, embrace joy and run. What do they have in common? Keep running no matter what. And I've challenged you over the years to say you're not in it for a great year, you're in it for a great career. And there's more on that here in a second. Get up and run. There are two kinds of agents. The one that is waiting until the shift ends. The second is embracing the opportunities of a shift. We are in it, and we've been in it for 3 years. We are going to continue to be in it. And you either embrace the market that we were in, or you talk about what was. And there are agents out there building empires in this opportunity off the backs of those agents that are not willing to do the work. That is factually true. So let's get into it. One, the U.S. economy. Couple general commentaries. And this goes to my point around having a great career, not just a great year. Your production level is truly the average of your career. Too many judge based on their best year. You are only as good as your career average. Think about a baseball player. They don't talk about a baseball player's best year. They talk about their career batting average. You're in the same space. Don't get too high when you're too high, and don't get too low when you're too low. Focus on what your career average is over a long period of time. School is never out for a true professional, and discipline is the ability to get what you want when you want it. So when you think about the economy, there's 4 factors that the government is trying to figure out. The government has 2 goals. How do we keep people employed, and how do we make things cost as little as possible? Okay. The challenge of it is, and this is where we're in, is when unemployment goes up, inflation goes down. And when inflation goes up, unemployment goes down. So we're in a bit of a serious quagmire because the government is looking at this and saying, all right, how do we manage the cost of money, tariffs, and government policy in terms of creating certainty by leveling inflation and unemployment because GDP is their scorecard? Okay. And the commentary right now is somewhat appropriate because of A, a change in administration, and B, what I would generally believe to be factually true, a lot of uncertainty as it relates to policy. What's going on? What's happening next? And I hear about it a lot from friends of mine who run manufacturing companies. The manufacturing space right now is, on Tuesday it could be great, and on Thursday it could be dire because of a lot of uncertainty. And you got to remember, the backbone of the American economy is manufacturing, and that includes housing. You can't have housing without manufacturing because you got to manufacture housing. So something to think about. Also, as it relates to the economy and the GDP being the scorecard, it's the understanding of how well our economy is growing. And when the economy is growing, people are spending money. There are 3 tools that the government has, as I mentioned earlier: the cost of money, which is interest rates, tariff, which impacts trade, and government policy creating certainty. Too much uncertainty and too much unpredictability is when investors are uncertain and they hang on to their money. When there's too much uncertainty and too much unpredictability, investors are uncertain, so they hang on to their money. So when you look at GDP, and I'm going to try and figure out how to remove this. Sorry, guys. Hide it. Whoop. And we're going to hide these. Perfect. When you look at GDP as it relates to the scorecard, GDP is basically, the definition is what people are spending for goods and services. The goal the federal government has at any given year is to be up 2%. That's kind of like their baseline. Above 2%, the economy's humming. Below 2%, we have some, it's a slowdown. Going from 2.8% to what they project to be a 1.4% growth in 2025 is a dramatic slowdown in terms of our GDP. There's uncertainty because of uncertainty within policy. And so the GDP going from 2.8 to down or to a 1.4 is a dramatic drop in terms of the scorecard. When you look at it from an unemployment standpoint, a couple things to note. We are coming out of the healthiest unemployment run ever. And 4.5% is still healthy. Unemployment has typically been, outside of 2020, increased 1 year, and unemployment has typically never increased 1 year and went back down the next, outside of 2020. So the challenge becomes, is we're entering into a period where unemployment is rising and heading in the wrong direction. The challenge becomes, does the Fed battle inflation or unemployment? Because the policies themselves counteract each other. And I'll have a bit more about that here in a second. And anything below 4% is a gainfully employed economy, which you've seen what we've been coming out of over the last several years. A gainfully employed economy led to increased inflation, which is kind of where this quagmire that we're in. Unemployment as it relates to job openings, there are a couple things to pay attention to. Because unemployment is trending higher, it means having more people looking for jobs than jobs are becoming available. And you're starting to see that inflection point in June of 2025, when the unemployed people in the millions was 7 million and job openings were 7.4 million. And that, based on the trend lines of how that is trending, we will soon be in a position where there are more jobs, that there are more people looking for jobs than jobs that are available in the market. Okay? And from an inflation standpoint, again, remember, it's like whack-a-mole. You either fix unemployment or you fix inflation. And the policies that you do counteract one another. Inflation, from a definitionary term, is the cost of the items in which you pay. And how do I look at inflation as it relates to, do I have a job, do I have money, and what am I paying for things within the marketplace? You can see the projected trend after what we had come out of in 21, 22, and 23 with a high inflationary period, a low unemployment period. Now we're entering into a period where unemployment is starting to rise. Inflation is back, or in terms of under control versus average over the last 20 to 30 years. And so we're in this quagmire from an administration and a Fed standpoint of, what are we trying to do and what does the future look like? And I think there's some uncertainty as the policies that the current administration plans to enact in order to, how do you manage this? All of which impacts our industry. So the quandary becomes, the Fed's at an inflection point, because do we lower rates or higher rates is the most basic way to ask the question as it relates to, if I was explaining this to a second grader. When you lower rates, you heat up the economy because it helps jobs with unemployment. Businesses with lower rates have the ability to reinvest back in their businesses. The challenge, though, is if you higher rates, you cool down the economy, and it also helps inflation. So the question becomes, is do we want to focus on unemployment or do we want to continue to focus on inflation? That's the challenge of the current administration has to figure out. And so what we're in is at a period of stagflation, when inflation and unemployment are both going up. So do we lower the cost of money or do we focus on inflation is the key question. And so when unemployment goes up, you lower the cost of money. And when inflation goes up, you raise the cost of money. So which devil do we want to dance with? Housing is in an interesting point. And this gets to my point of being in a sloth of a market. Homes right now, and you'll see here in terms of affordability data later on in the presentation, are in a bit of a period of unaffordability. Right now, they're at about a 35% on a national basis. And interest rates are around 6.5%. So when you combine the unaffordability aspect of the appreciation we've experienced plus high interest rates, we're in a bit of a quagmire. If we lower rates, it will heat up demand and it will raise appreciation further. I'll repeat, if we lower rates, it will heat up demand and it will raise appreciation further. And housing is the #1 driver in the US economy and something the government wants to heat up. So I'm going to backtrack for you. I talked about how the economy right now is plus 1.8%, coming down off of a 2.8%. That's a big drop in a 12-month period. Unemployment is rising slowly. Inflation is going down. And then you have this dynamic with the #1 driver in our economy, which is the housing sector. You have a period of incredible appreciation gains with rising interest rates over the last 3 years. And the Fed is somewhat uncertain as to what to do, because if they lower rates, means it will spike unemployment down, which means there are more people gainfully employed, which means inflation goes up. If they do that, though, they're worried about the cost of unaffordability as it relates to the appreciation of homes. And if they keep rates high and the housing sector remains cool, they can't fix their economy. They're in a tough spot. Very complicated problem to solve. I don't have the answers to solve it. I'm just trying to help you understand where it is that we are and where do I think that we're going. So we're in a period of quagmire as it relates to our economy, because our industry is the #1 driver to our economy. Make sense? So let's take a look at how this correlates then to the real estate industry, trying to help you make sense of what is going on in the macroeconomy. A couple things to point out, okay, is the market has normalized. It feels like we are transacting at a snail's pace, because we are, for those of us who've been in the business for the last 5+ years. It's a slow climb out of where we are, and yet we're bullish on the future of the next 5 to 10 years because of demographic data at play as it relates to demand metrics. Anything above 4 million units, there's more units there's more than enough units transacting for you to have your best year ever. The point being is, you can't sit here and feel bad for yourself. You have to sit here and think about, what am I strategically doing to take advantage of the market at the moment? Because there is enough transactional units. And if I use Milwaukee as an example, we will get anywhere between 45,000 to 50,000 transactional units this year in southeastern Wisconsin in 2026. Most of you, in order to hit your income goals, are trying to do 10, 20, 30, 100, 200, 300 units. At the most amount of units within our organization or across the MLS, the largest teams are going to do 300 to 400 units in a universe of 45,000 to 50,000 transactional units. Point being is, there's more than enough transactional units to be had. And if you look at the next 5 to 10 years and know that history repeats itself, this is why I put the arrows in there to say, look what happened in 90 to all the way up to 05, 06. And then look what happened in 08, and look what happened all the way up to 2021. And then I say, well, look where we are in 2025. And what do you think the next 5 to 10 years of the business looks like? By the way, for those of you under the age of, let's just say 60, something to think about. The average age right now of an associate in southeastern Wisconsin in the real estate professional business is 60 years old. If you think about where we are headed in the next 5 to 10 years, if you strategically structure your business appropriately in 2026, you will be taking advantage as market share begins to shift out of the market as it relates to just age demographics in our industry. Something you need to be thinking about. So moving forward, home sales on an annual basis, you have to understand we're in a period of polarization, because the gap between the great agents and the average agents, and the same thing goes for brokerage, is getting wider. The great agents are growing. The average agents are sitting there in their feels about what they just came out of in 21 and 22. Agents have to embrace the market of the moment in order to make more money. Another piece of commentary that I thought was wildly fascinating is in Q1 of 2025, 1/3 of all transactions included an investor on a national basis. And the point being is investors are smart people making smart bets. They took advantage of the market of the moment. And the commentary to it is you follow the smart money. Follow the smart money, which is buy real estate and wait. This is more so of his direct commentary from a prediction standpoint. At some point, and this is why we're bullish on the next 5 to 10 years, compounding growth will happen. The question becomes when. We are looking for an inflection point. In their professional opinion, they are telling people to pay attention to Q3 of 2026. When home sales take off or will remain stagnant, and they believe in Q3 of 2026 for a variety of reasons, will be an inflection point within our industry, which will give us more indication as to how quickly it will rebound or how slow it will take. Until then, we need to implement the strategies we talk about today from top agents nationally in order to take our unfair share. These agents treat real estate like a true business where they employ themselves. They have a plan and they take action. And interestingly enough, top agents, while they're all unique, yet they're all doing the same thing. So, home prices. We've talked about this and I've shared this graph many times before. The light blue line is the long-term trend line of 4% appreciation. This year in 2025 across the US, we're expected to hit an 8% appreciation level. 8%. The historical average is 4%, and we're trending 8.3% above the trend line, which is why housing has become somewhat of an unaffordable conversation. Housing inventory and affordability alleviation, it's a local level solution driver, not a federal government responsibility. So part of the way that we can interact within our communities and make an impact is how do we become advocate for housing policies within the communities in order to alleviate inventory issues. And as a reminder, prices have only gone down in dire times. We are not in a dire time. And so it's the whole concept of when people say, am I buying at the top of the market? Am I buying at the top of the market? Over a period of time, which the average hold period is 7 to 10 years, the average person only loses money in real estate because they made a poor decision. It wasn't because of the real estate. And it was based on how they bought it and how long they held it. Average hold period being 7 to 10 years, all prices correct themselves within a 5-year window, which makes that is where that commentary is coming from. Inventory on a monthly basis, and I'll give this data on a local level to you next week, is inventory is rising, which isn't a bad thing. Nationally, we're entering into a period of 4.7 months of supply of inventory. A balanced market is 6 months. So we're getting on a national level much closer to a balanced market in terms of inventory. I'll take a look at the local market next week. When we have we will have 5 months of inventory by the end of the year, which will help lower the price of real estate and gets us back to closer to the 4% trend line, which is ultimately where is an industry we really desire to be. Our sellers don't love it, but our buyers do. Okay. Mortgage rates. What I did here, and I think this is an exceptional slide that they always showcase, is the annualized rate over a period of time going back to 1972. You can see the historical average from 72 to 73 is the light blue dotted line, and historical average from 1990 to 2023 is the green dotted line. The historical average going back to 1972 is 7.7%. The projection is we're going to finish the year from an average basis in 2025 at 6.7%. Okay? Rates have normalized for consumers. I rarely hear conversations with consumers that talk rates much anymore. As it relates to, obviously outside the commoditization of should I go with X lender or Y lender, but rates have normalized. So who in life would loan you a significant amount of money at 6.5%? The answer is probably nobody. Average annual return within the S&P 500 is 10%. So why would anyone on a private basis loan you money at 6.5%? Banks do it because they follow smart money. And they're buying the biggest asset in the world, which is housing paper, effectively. When you look at mortgage rates, it's always a great time to buy. Time in the market beats timing the market. Value always appreciates over time. And you might not buy at the top of the moment, but you'll never buy at the top of the market because the market always rises. As it relates to affordability, we have the second highest, most unaffordable market we have ever operated in so far in 2024. And prices kept going up. And it has become more expensive. And yet it has not been more expensive than it has. 1981, it was 49%. And what they're measuring this is principal and interest as a percentage of an overall consumer's income. Now, shifting into volume per agent, this is some interesting information for you. We talked about transactional units and basically saying if you're above 4 million transactional units, or in southeastern Wisconsin, we'll do 45 to 50,000 transactional units this year, you're still in a great market to operate a great business. In 2025, as it relates to volume per agent, it was the third best year ever. Nobody feels bad for real estate professionals because they're doing less deals and making more money. The separation is someone will outwork you for your next deal. You can't rest. So the comment becomes, sometimes we've gotten a little drunk on volume, and so we've gotten a bit complacent because our average deal size has gone up, and that's factually true when you look at the average price point that everyone's working at. And so agents have become strategically complacent. And what do I mean by that is they're not strategically becoming complacent because that's a good strategy. It's their strategies have gotten complacent, and so somebody else is outworking them, and they're getting more transactional units. It's why I keep telling you that agents control their units, the market gives you volume. The separation will be is who is taking advantage of the transactional unit game, who is outworking you for their next deal, and can you rest? As it relates to consumers' confidence, as it is related to our industry, and we've come out of a period where there was a lot of conversation around our industry and our professional services. In 2024, 88% of all transactions had representation. It was the second highest in the history of the industry in 40 plus years. The reason being transactions are getting more complex, not less, and people are showing you they value the services you provide. And when you think about what's important to buyers or sellers when working with professionals, they looked at a variety of surveys as it relates to real estate agent, mortgage broker, homeowners insurance agent, and mortgage banker. And the number one most important factor in your ability to convert a client in any of these spaces as it relates to housing is the definition of comfort. How we communicate, how we behave, and how we talk about our services in order for our clients to be comfortable with allowing us to help them transact a very complex transaction. Remember, 92% of the time, a client interviews one or two real estate professionals. The person who converts the deal is the person who makes them feel comfortable with their largest financial asset. Closing remarks. You can be the world's foremost leading expert on a community. Few are willing to do the research, analyze the data, and communicate their findings effectively. The challenge is can you be the expert within the communities in which you desire to work? You can be the world's foremost leading expert on a community. Do the research, analyze the data, and communicate what your findings are and how you help people navigate a complex situation, and you will win more deals than you will lose. I guarantee it. Business likes pendulums that swing. You don't want equilibrium. And this is more of some commentary of getting out of our feels of coming into a really, really robust market and then all of a sudden it feeling like the water was shut off on the valve. You don't want equilibrium. Periods of pendulum swings like we're in right now creates opportunity, evolves innovation, and challenges your thought creation during shifts and swings, all of which benefit you, your business, and your clients. It forces you to think about your business differently. And there are empires being built right now on the backs of agents not willing to do the work. My closing remarks to you as it relates to the market and our industry and where we're headed. I'm bullish on the next 5 to 10 years. It felt like we were in a slog. We are. And if you're looking at your career batting average or your career production level, and you look at that over the average of your career and you keep building progressively and take advantage of the pendulum swinging, and you do the activities, there's plenty of transactions to be had. The uncertainty that we're facing in terms of how quickly it will come back is all tied to the macroeconomy as it relates to unemployment, inflation, and how they use housing as the #1 driver to our economy as it relates to the GDP as the scorecard. What do they do with it? Where do we go? And that's where the uncertainty lies. And yet there's plenty of transactional units and plenty of transactional volume for you to build an exceptional business heading into 2026. That would be my challenge to you. So I will leave you with this. What a privilege to be tired from work you once begged the universe for. What a privilege to feel overwhelmed by growth you used to dream about. What a privilege to be challenged by a life you created on purpose. What a privilege to outgrow things you used to settle for. That's my challenge to you heading into your strategic business planning season, heading into 2026. It is a privilege to be busy, and it is a privilege for your services to be wanted and utilized. Have that mindset as you think about your businesses moving forward, and we're here to continue to serve you, and it's a privilege to serve you and help you outpace your market in what you want to transact in. Guys, thanks for showing up on a Tuesday morning. Have a great day.